For the past week or so, I've been deep in the zone, building a pretty cool app for developers. But here's the thing. I wasn't using GitHub Copilot. I wasn't using Cursor either, even though that's where I started. Most of the magic actually happened with a brand new tool. And honestly, it's my favorite tool so far. In this video, I'll show you exactly what it is, why it's such a game changer for app development, and how you can use it to build smarter and faster. Let's jump in. Now, before we get started, as always, all the apps and all the resources that I discuss on this channel can be viewed and or cloned by becoming a member of our amazing Patreon community. And so if you're interested in supporting this channel and getting more amazing stuff, check the first link in the description to learn more. Now, the tool that we're going to be talking about today is called Claude. And this is an amazingly powerful tool when it comes to writing your apps, fixing your code, stuff like that. But this tool works a little bit differently than probably the tools that you're used to, okay? So this is your code's new collaborator, right? So you can unleash Claude's raw power directly in your terminal. And this is the key word right here. So this tool works in your terminal. It doesn't work like an IDE, like Cursor, either as a full-blown IDE or a plugin. So it doesn't have that visual element, but that doesn't take away anything from its power, okay? Because I personally was very, very hesitant to using it once I heard of this. But after using it, I'm just blown away. It's absolutely a game changer, okay? And so you can kind of read more about it. And I do highly recommend that you read a lot of the things that I talk about here. There's some good videos. They have a good tutorial on it that's going to help you to, to draft your prompts better, more effective prompting, stuff like that. And so before we jump into Claude Code and how it works, I want to show you an app that I built that does some interesting things. So here I am in FlutterFlow, and I have an app here that has 3 different kind of tabs here. Now, the way that I like to run these apps is that instead of running them in FlutterFlow, I like to run them on a simulator. So that way I have a pretty good idea that these apps work, that, they're going to run fine on a real device. And so this is good practice that you want to have. And my workflow is typically clicking here, and you can download the code here. You can connect the GitHub repo. You can do all of this. But what I like to do is I like to click this, Open in VS Code. Okay, so when I click that, it opens up in Visual Studio Code, right? So if I click over here, that's going to go ahead and download this app and open it in Visual Studio Code, okay? And so as you can see, it's downloading it right now, and it's saving this project, and it's going to open this project right here, okay? So now it's asking me to do all this. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out because I have all that. But right now I have an app here. So if I go over here, I have my FlutterFlow app exported as a Flutter app. Now, I personally do not like to work in Visual Studio Code. I prefer to work in Cursor. They're very, very similar. It's just a preference thing. So what I like to do is I like to click on Terminal here. That's going to open up in its own directory. And I like to do Cursor dot. And that's going to open Cursor in that directory. Okay, so now it's pretty much the same thing. I have the app open here in Cursor, and now I can see the code. I can see everything that's happening. I can see the whole app here exported, just like in Visual Studio Code. And now I can actually run this app on a simulator or a real device. And so the next thing that I like to do is I want to start my simulator here. So I'm going to type the simulator. I have it installed. It's an iOS iPhone 15 Pro Max simulator. And once I have it running over here, I can jump back to my IDE, and I should see it selected over here, right? So as you can see, now it is selected. And so now I can go into run, and I typically like to do run without debugging. And that's going to go ahead and build my app and run it on this simulator, okay? And if it works on a simulator, it's gonna 99.9% is going to work on the real device. And now we have this app running in our simulator. So let me show you what this app does and some of the things that we can enhance in this app using Claude Code, okay? So the first tab here is a beach find. So for instance, if I start typing San Diego, we have our options, right? We have this autocomplete that's coming from Google. And once I type search, we're going to be getting results. Okay, so we see success. And what we have here is we have a list of beaches near San Diego, right? So we have this Coronado Beach, 2.7 miles away. We also have like ratings. We have pictures. We can scroll this. We have South Mission Beach, 6.12 miles away. We have ratings. We can also show reviews. Lots of interesting things, right? So now, how exactly does this work? Well, if we jump into FlutterFlow here, you can see that here's our app. And the way this works is that this part here is done using an API call, right? So as the person changes stuff here, we have an API call, right? So if we have these two actions, we have a search places. If we go into search places, this is a simple Google Places API call. This is very, very simple. The magic that appears right here, right? The beach cards, this is actually done using a Claude function, right? So if we go over here, we have get nearby beaches, and we have a Claude function that does a lot of interesting things, right? So it connects, to Google. It sends the place ID. It gets like the information because we're passing in the place ID. Once the user types the location, that gets converted into a place ID. And then we use that place ID to find nearby locations. But there's a lot of things happening here, right? This Claude function, it calls a lot of different APIs to get all of this information, right? So right now it's calling like Google Places. It can also call another API. It could potentially call something like a sea temperature API to get the water temperature, right? Because you don't want to go to a beach if the water is still fairly cold. You probably prefer to go to a beach that has, fairly warm water temperature, right? So we can we can execute lots of other APIs and get a lot of information, make our app a lot richer. And so, there's many things that we can modify here. And this is something that we can use Claude Code to do for us, okay? And so what I'm going to do right now in this first little demo is we're going to enhance this part of the app. And then we're going to check out some of the other parts of the app and see how we can enhance those as well. And so let's say you want to have a sea temperature API here. Well, if you Google for sea temperature, or you just head over to rapidapi.com that hosts lots and lots of different APIs, you're gonna find this API right here. So this is called sea surface temperature, right? And they have a free plan that you can start using, which is what I'm using right now. And if you go over here, you can see the different API calls over here, right? Current sea temperature. You also have monthly average, historical sea temperature. I am only curious about this current sea temperature, right? So we have this API call, and I can test this endpoint. And this is what I'm getting back, right? I'm getting this data here, date, so I'm getting real data, right? I'm getting real data. I don't know what I'm sending, right? So if I go over here, yeah, we have some location. Maybe this is LA. I'm not really sure. It doesn't really matter, right? The point is this works, right? And so I can potentially enhance my Claude function to give me more data. And I can also modify lots of other code to give me, to provide more value to the user, okay? And so now that I kind of set the stage to how this works, let me show you how you can install Claude Code and get it to work with your system. So Claude Code works from terminal, right? So you need to have a terminal open, right? So here's my terminal, and I know that the location where the app is saved is right here. So I have my projects FF, which is FlutterFlow, and I also have this location here. This is the name of the project, right? So if I go over here, this is the name of the project, and this is where it's saving. So this is my app right here. And so now what I want to do is I want to type the following command, this command right here, okay? And that's going to go ahead and install Claude in this location, so that it can study my project. And you can do this as many times as you want. So if you have multiple projects that you're working on, you can install this in multiple places. And that way you're going to have Claude Code set up in multiple places. So I'm going to go ahead and run this right now. And it's going to take a few moments to set up, right? So it's telling me, welcome to Claude Code. So it gives me tips for getting started, right? It wants me to run init to create a Claude MD file with instructions for Claude, okay, and all of this, right? So I'm going to type init, right? I'm just going to follow. And now it's going to be analyzing my code base, okay? So it's going to be, doing this. It's going to say, I'll analyze this code base and create a Claude MD file with the essential information for future instances, right? So this is really nice because it only needs to do it once. After it does it once, it's going to know what my app is all about. It's going to have the information. So now I can just ask it to do this, do that. I don't have to constantly tell it, hey, this is my app. This is what my app is written in. This is what my app does. Do this. It's going to know all that, right? So we need to give it a few moments, right? So it read, all of this stuff. This is my Flutter app that was generated as the result of that FlutterFlow app that we built in FlutterFlow. And so it's analyzing the files, it's kind of studying the app right here. So let's give it a few moments. All right, so at this point, it has finished analyzing my app and it's showing me the file. Okay, so this is a Claude MD file. And it's telling me this file provides guidance to Claude when working with code in this repository. This is a Flutter application built with FlutterFlow that provides beach discovery and real estate search functionality. And this is something that we're going to get to in a little bit, okay? So it's telling me all this stuff, front end, back end, essential commands, right? So it kind of knows exactly. We also have API keys, AA integration, Firebase. So it knows a lot. It knows pretty much everything about my app. And now it's asking me, do you want to create Claude MD? And so you can select yes, yes, and don't ask again, and no. I typically like to select yes and don't ask again because I don't want it to keep prompting me to create files. I just wanted to do it. So I'm going to select that. It's going to go ahead and write this to Claude MD right now. Okay, and so now it tells us I've created the Claude MD file with essential information about your project. Okay, and we can also modify that file or we can just leave it as is. And anytime we start a new Claude session, in that directory, in this project directory, it's going to read it first so it understands what the system is all about. And so now we can ask it a bunch of things. So we can say something like, briefly explain what the app does. Okay, so something like this. And it's telling us this is a location-based discovery app that helps users find nearby beaches, real estate properties, etc., etc. And that is exactly what it does. Okay, it has these two features. There's also another feature that I'll get to in a little bit, but these are the two main features. Okay, so now I can ask it something like, briefly explain how it does beach discovery near a location. Okay, so let's say I'm trying to understand what it does. And it's going to tell me, right? It can go as deep as it wants or as shallow as it wants, right? So the beach discovery works through a Firebase cloud function. User provides location, cloud function this, returns up to 20 beaches. Flutter app displays results. Very, very simple. And that's exactly what's happening, right? So we have our cloud function here and it's, user types here and that triggers the cloud function, right? So we have this search places. And then when they click search, that goes ahead and triggers this cloud function with the place ID parameter, right? We need to get that place ID. Okay, and that's it. So now, let's say we want to enhance the app. So we talked about including seawater temperature. Okay, so I already found an API. I did my research. I have it right here. I signed up. And now I'm looking at the screen and I know this works too, right? But I don't want to go code this, right? I don't want to, change the code. I just want the system to do it. And so now what I want to do is I'm going to say, I'd like to add a sea temperature variable that you can return along with all the other info. Can you make use of this API call? Okay. And what I like to do here is you can take a screenshot of this and drag the file over there. You can do that as well, but this is too easy. I can just copy this right here, and that's everything that you need to execute this API call. So I can just do that, okay? And at this point, I just wanted to explain. Just tell me if it's feasible and how you do it, okay? So I don't want it to code anything. I like to go baby steps, right? Baby steps is the way. You can go all out if you want, but baby steps is really the best way. And so it's telling me, yes, it's feasible. Here's how I'd integrate it, right? Modify this, implementation approach, all this. Now, before we actually modify the other function, what I'd like to do at this point is I want to ask it if you can test it, if it works, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead. I don't even need to copy it. I can just say, for now, can you test if the curl request above works for San Diego, California? Okay, and it's going to figure everything out. It knows that it needs to pass location and all that. And so let's go ahead and see what happens. Okay, so it figured out that we need to change the coordinates. It knows that, this is San Diego, this is something else. This might be Miami. I don't even know where that is, but it figured out that this is San Diego. And so now it created a curl request, and it's asking me, do I want to proceed? I'm going to say yes. And now it's going to go ahead and execute it. And this is very, very important because we want to test things separately, okay? So it's telling me the API works. It returns a 7-day forecast of C temp with San Diego. Current temp is this. Returns. And so at this point, I'm happy, right? The API works. The server works. My API key works. I haven't gone beyond my plan. All of that. Everything works. And so now we are ready to put it all together. So now go ahead and integrate this feature into the main Claude function, okay? Let's go ahead and see what happens. And now it's going to modify this into the main Claude function that I built previously, okay? So it's giving me a list of to-dos, read this to understand it, add C, test the implementation. So it's going to test it, but testing is a little tricky because this is a Claude function and you need to kind of test it a certain way. So we might not need to have it tested. We may want to test it a different way. And then we want to update the response format documentation because now we're also getting the seat temperature. Very, very important, okay? So let's see what's happening. So it's adding this rapid API key in there, okay? Because now we are using another API call and it's working. Okay, let's give it a couple of moments. Okay, so it modified the code and now it wants to test it. Let's see if that works. Testing is always very, very tricky. All right, so it even added documentation that we didn't even have before over here, right? So I've successfully integrated new API, error handling, response enhancement, documentation. Really, really nice. Really, really nice. And so now if I go back to cursor and I open my Claude function, I should have that updated, right? So if I go over here, and I search for get nearby beaches right here. This is what we have, and it's fully updated, right? So now we have this get sea temperature over here. Now, another thing that I'd like to do is I'd like to create a test, but I'd like to do it my own way, okay? I don't want to test it as a Claude function as is. I'm going to tell it, go ahead and create a test based off the code in there so that we can run it as though we are running a Claude function because the thing with the Claude function is that it needs to run on, Google Cloud, right? Because, it needs to be authenticated and all of that. So we don't want to mess with that. We want to just test the code. So what I want to do is create a test with just the main code in the Claude function to check whether the code would work with an input and output. Don't test it as a Claude function. Convert it into a regular JavaScript code, convert it into regular something like this, okay? So let's see if it's able to do it. That is kind of how I like to do it because testing Claude functions is fairly tricky. And so it's telling me I'll create a test file that converts the Claude function into regular JavaScript code for testing. I'm only interested mainly in the code and the logic, right? Just to see the output, just to see the input. And if that works, then the Claude function most likely works as well. Okay, so it went ahead and created this test nearby beaches with the code, with the newly updated code, and now it wants to run it. Okay, so it's telling me, so I'm just going to say yes to everything. And let's see what's happening. So it's missing this module. That's okay. That's not a problem. We're going to say yes. Okay, and there we have it. Starting test, origin coordinates. This perfect. The test works successfully. The code successfully retrieves beaches near San Diego, fetches C temp, returns complete data, all of this. The output shows real beaches. Now, how cool is that? Like, when I saw this, I was just blown away that you can do all of this, right? Because that is typically, because usually I need to do it manually, right? Using like Rapid API, a bunch of other tools. Here, I can do all of this here. And so now I know that, the integration is working correctly and ready for deployment to Firebase. So now I'm happy with the way it works. And so at this point, yeah, you can deploy it to Firebase. You can do anything that you want. But what I'd like to do here is I have the file, right? So I can simply come over here and I can just copy all of this and I can go back into FlutterFlow, or I can push to FlutterFlow. I can do that as well. So in fact, that might be a better way to do it. So I'm going to push into FlutterFlow. It's going to go ahead and sync this function here. And then if I go back to FlutterFlow over here, I should have this new function. And here's my new function over here. Okay, so we know this works because it tested all the code, right? So here we're getting a seat temperature. And another thing that I can do is I can ask it, can you show me a sample response from this function? Don't execute the Claude function. Okay, so it should know from looking at the code what the sample response is going to be. Okay, so this is the sample response. Look at this. Here's the sample response. So it's a list of JSONs. Okay, so we have this one record, and here you see the seat temperature. And the reason I asked it to show us the sample response is because it's very important, right? Because we need to parse this stuff out. Seat temperature for this beach, right? The date, etc., right? Very, very important. So at this point, I know this is a list of JSON. I can save it and I can deploy it, right? So I'm going to go ahead and deploy it. We're going to deploy this Claude function. It should be no issues because we've tested the code and it's the same Claude function, except the code has changed, right? We have a new function in there that gets the seat temperature. Should be no issues. We're going to deploy it, but we still need to know this, right? Because we need to display it correctly, which is going to be the other part of this, how to display it correctly in the widget. And we're going to be using Claude Code to do that as well. And so while this is deploying, I can jump back into Claude Code and I can say, can you check our beach listing widget and see if we need to display seat temperature there as well? All right, so it found the beach, the individual beach listing widget that we use in our list view. And it's telling us current beach card widget displays all of this. Seat temperature is now available, but is not being displayed in the widget. The widget needs to be updated to all of this. Okay, yes, we need to update the beach card widget to display it. Okay, so now that it found it, now that it understands how everything is kind of tied together, we can ask it to update it, right? So go ahead and update the beach card widget with the right data coming. So go ahead and update the beach card widget with the right seat temp data coming from the Claude function, okay? Show me what changes you made after you're done. Show me what changes you made so that we can verify if it's doing it correctly, okay? So let's see what happens. Okay, so it's modifying our custom widget to add all of this, okay? And now it's displaying it here, okay? So it's displaying it and it's getting temp F because remember, this is how it looks. So it's getting what it needs to get. It's getting temp F over here, okay? Now it's telling us new display element, all of this. And so now let's go back and look at our app and see what happens. And so now I can load my custom widget here, beach card, and see what's happening, right? So we have the seat temperature, and we're also displaying it somewhere right here. We're displaying it here in its own row, okay? And so let's go ahead and see how our app looks. Our new Claude function has been deployed. That gets the seat temperature. This is great. This is important. And so now if we go over here, we have this beach card. Now here we also need to add another parameter here. Okay, so if we save this, it's going to give us an error, unable to process parameters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it manually. Seat temperature, and this is going to be a JSON, right? Because it's a object, right? So this is a JSON. And so now if I click over here, I can see how it wants to display it, right? As a dynamic. So that's kind of what you want to do. As a dynamic over here, okay? And so now it can get the data. So now if I save it, everything works fine. And here is where it's pulling it, right? It's saying seat temperature, temp F. I'm going to go ahead and save it, and I'm going to compile it for good measure. I don't think we need that. And because we've added a new parameter, we also need to set it once we work on the page, right? So if we go over here, so this is the beach card. So I'm going to click over here, and I'm going to pass it. So we have this beach item. This is a JSON path, and you saw what the request looks like, right? This is the request over here, right? So we need to actually pass this whole thing here, okay? This whole thing, seat temperature. So I'm going to do that. And now we're passing that object, right? That object, seat temperature. Then we can pull out, Celsius, Fahrenheit, the date, anything that we need, okay? So now we have the seat temp coming from the Claude function. We have it as part of the card widget. and we have it passing from the main page onto the card widget so that we can display it. Okay. And so at this point, we can go back to our IDE and we can pull the latest. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the latest, and we're going to go ahead and restart our app. Okay. So let's try this now. Okay, and now our ctemp is being displayed as its own row with a nice little icon over there. So 68, 69, 68, and here there's no temperature, right? It was probably null. It probably was not provided, right? 67, so it's not just 68, right? 67, 69. So it's a little, it's not as hot as you probably want, right? Like I probably prefer to be like 85. I don't know, at least 80 degrees probably. So it's a little brisk, right? It's a little brisk in San Diego, okay? So we just added a fairly complex feature fairly easily, right? Fairly easily. So let's go ahead and try something else. Now, if you go to our second app here, this is a house hunter. And so if you type something like, find me a 3-bedroom beautiful house under 500K, let's say under 500,000, near or within 25 miles of Houston, Texas, let's see what happens. So I'm going to do a search, and this is what we see, 428,000, 365,000, and more houses. We have 2 beds, 2 baths, 3 beds, 3 baths. That's a decent house, right? Not bad at all. And this part of the app works very, very similarly as the other app. So if we go back to FlutterFlow, this is what we have here. This is our house hunter. And we also have a Claude function, right? So get listings. And here we are doing a couple of other things. We're using Claude 3 Haiku, which is one of their cheaper models, to parse the text so that we can parse the parameters that the user is asking for and send them to an API using like structured JSON values, right? We can basically parse the raw text into structured data and pass them into the other API, right? And the other API we're using is Zillow, okay? So if we go over here, we have the Zillow API. I'm also using Rapid API. And so if you click over here, you have the Zillow here. And I'm also using the free plan over here. So I'm not paying for anything. And this allows you to do all kinds of interesting property-based searches, right? So if you're not familiar, Zillow is like a big property-based search engine, if you will, in the US, okay? Where you can look at different properties, the cost, the history of the property, lots of interesting things, right? And this thing has lots and lots of API endpoints, right? Property extended search, a bunch of other ones. We're actually using property extended search. And if you click on property extended search, if you click on params, you have 76 parameters. 76 parameters. So I basically fed all of that to Claude, and that created this Claude function for me, right? So if you click over here, you can see this Claude function. And so what we're doing is we're sending it to Claude Haiku, which is the cheapest model, to get this JSON data, right? So it's, we're saying you are a real estate assistant that converts natural language property searches into structured JSON, all of this. So this is what we get back, and that way we can do the structured search for the next API endpoint, right? We can send that data to the next API endpoint, which is this one right here. Now, one thing that I've been thinking about is, wouldn't it be cool to add a walkability score? Basically, I want to know, like, how walkable is the neighborhood? Do I need to, or is it somewhere like, in the farms somewhere, like far away from civilization? Like, I want to know, how close am I to the city? Can I walk? Are there buses or whatnot? And fortunately, there's a really, really nice API called Walk Score. And so what this API does is it gives you a walk score. So like 99 means that you don't need a car, right? There's buses everywhere, public transport, there's stores, everything, right? Whereas a walk score of like 1 means that there's nothing around you. You probably need a car and you need to drive like for half an hour or an hour to get somewhere, right? And so that's the idea here. So it would be cool, in addition to seeing all of this, also get the walk score for each of these properties, okay? And that is exactly what I want to do right now. And so we're going to go back to our Claude over here, and we're still on the same project, right? It's just we're working on a different part of the app. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to tell me a little bit about that other endpoint. So can you tell me a bit about the property search feature of the app. Okay, so I wanted to kind of internalize, and I'm testing it to see if it understands it correctly, right? So it's not confused like, in the first step. All right, and this is what it's telling me. Property search feature overview. This property search feature is an AI-powered real estate search. All of this, natural language input, AI-powered query parsing, Zillow API integration, user experience, etc., etc. So pretty much everything that I talked about, but it also shows the data flow. I really, really like that because otherwise you need to spend time to understand it. So user types this, AI parses this, Zillow API returns matching properties, UI displays all of this, key features, etc., etc. And so now what I want to do is I want to ask it if it's feasible to add the walking score in there as well. So if I click on documentation, I can see exactly how to do it, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, can I do this? Can I implement this feature here, okay? So let's go ahead and see, is it possible to also add a walking score metric for each property being listed? And I'm going to say using this API. And I also want to say explain how you do it, okay? Let's see what it thinks. Okay, and there we have it. Look at this. Yes, it's definitely possible. Implementation approach, modify, get listings, cloud function. So it's going to do the same thing. Add this. We pass in an address, lat long, and it's going to give us the walking score, right? Also walk description, transit score, bike store, all of that. Update the main function to include walk scores. Add the parameters, and then just change the UI, okay? Add walk score to property card. So all of this. And it even tells us like color coding, tooltips, icons, sample enhance response structure. This is really nice. This is really, really useful. And so now the next thing that I want to do is I wanted to test if the API works or not. And so I'm going to tell it, test the API first using this API key. Okay, and let's see if that works. It's going to execute this call. Looks like it got a walking score back. So if we expand all this, you see? Walker's Paradise updated all this. So perfect. The walk score API is working correctly. Here's what the response shows. All of this walk score. It knows the response. It has key insights. All of this. Really, really nice, right? And so now, being confident that the API works, I can tell it, go ahead and add this to our cloud function. The same process that we did before. Okay, now go ahead and integrate this walking score into our get listings cloud function. And it's nice enough to create a to-do so we can track as it's doing it. And if you are not like fully convinced that what it's doing right now is the right thing, you can press escape and tell it, hey, don't do this or do it another way. So it's very, very interactive. Okay, so it added my walking score. It added this function to our cloud function. Okay, it finished this. Now it wants to integrate API calls into the property listings pipeline. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So now we are returning the enhanced listings. Okay, this is our enhanced listings over here. Now it wants to create a test script to verify and has cloud functions works with walk score integration. Okay, let's see how that works. And so what's nice is that it remembers that we wanted a separate script to test the logic. We don't want to just test the cloud function. We wanted a separate script. So I'm going to say yes. Okay. And now it's telling us, perfect. I've successfully integrated the walk score API. Here's what I implemented, all of this. And each property row now includes this. Okay. Very, very important because the walk score is its own object. So we need to parse out the object to get to these fields over here. Very, very important. And so now we have the cloud function. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to search for this get property, get listings. Okay. And now this has the walking score. Okay. So now I can simply take it just to keep it super simple. Go back here, go to our cloud functions, get listings and paste this here. Okay, so now we have this, and let me double check. It returns we have a JSON here, and does it return the JSON? Go over here, and now it's probably going to be returning a list of JSONs now, because before it was returning an object, a single object with a list inside, but now it's probably going to be returning a list. So now let's go ahead and ask it, can you give me a sample response when you have multiple listings, when you have multiple, okay? Let's see what it says. Okay, and this is what we get back. Look at this. Yeah, we have a list. Actually, no, we still don't have a list. We have an object with listings inside. So this is not a list. It's still not a list. Okay, that's fine. And it wants, and so what does it want? It wants the query, and the query is just raw text. Okay, so we are done here. We're all done. The next thing that we need to do is now tell me how we can modify the property card in the listings to display the walking score. Okay, and now it's going to go ahead and find that widget, that custom widget that we have, and tell us how to modify. Okay, so it's modifying our widget over here. Look at this walk score section over here. This is our custom widget here. It's even adding some colors as well so that you can display green if it's very, very walkable, orange, amber, depending on its walkability. All right, so now it is finished and it's telling us, perfect, I've successfully modified it, right? So it added this walk score parameter, it added this, and now it even tells us a little preview, right? Walk, score, transit, all of this. And I'm not even sure if we're getting transit or bike, but we'll see. So it told us everything, right? Conditional, responsive layout, really, really nice. And so now let's go ahead and deploy our Claude function first, because we haven't deployed it yet. And now let's go back here and let's go ahead and pull up our property card. This is our property card. So we have this walk score. I'm just going to copy that. Go back here. We have this property card. Paste it here. Okay. Let me go ahead and reload this analyzer here so that we don't see the red stuff. Looks good. No errors. Nothing is missing. The only thing that we need to do is we can't save it because we have a walk score, right? So we need to add this walk score. And remember, because it's an object, it's a JSON object, you want to do JSON here, and you can keep it nullable. That's fine. And here you want to change that to dynamic. Actually, no, it's walk capital S. It's important. We're going to save that. Okay, now it saves. And if we go into walk score area, you can see that it's pulling this walk score, widget walk score, and then it goes into walk score. Let me double check if that's correct. Yeah, it is correct, right? Because we have walk score inside a walk score, which is exactly what it's doing, okay? So it's saving it, and now we want to go back to the main page, and we want to make sure that we're passing it, right? So I'm going to go to my property card. I'm going to go over here. We don't have this walk score, and what I want to do is I want to get this listing, and I want to do JSON path, and I want to do walk score. Like this, right? Because this is it right here, this thing right here. You see how it is? So we want to get this whole thing, and that's why we have this JSON path, and that way it passes all of this to our widget, and then we can simply pull in the right fields here. Okay, so we have the walk score, we have everything, and so now we need to wait for this Claude function to deploy. It's deployed, and let's go ahead, come back here. We can pull the latest changes, and let's go ahead and restart the app. Hopefully, we're going to have that walking score. And if we run it, we have the walking score, but we have an overflow issue, okay? It's overflowing by 46 pixels because it added the walking score. So this is really easy to fix. You can simply go to your FlutterFlow app, select this property card, and you want to increase the height. So we're overflowing by like 40 something. You can put 350. That's going to be enough. Come back here, pull the latest. Okay, go ahead and restart the app. Back over here and do a search. And now look at that. Look at that. Walk score 58. And it's even telling us somewhat walkable. Car dependent. Look at that. Car dependent, car dependent, car dependent 45. Somewhat walkable. How cool is that? That's really, really nice. Car dependent. Look at that. 22 out of 100. Car dependent, car dependent. Yeah, I would guess they're pretty much all of them are going to be fairly car dependent, right? Car dependent, car dependent. I mean, this is not New York City, right? Very walkable. 81. Wow. Okay. So maybe it's somewhere in Houston, right? Okay. But most of these are car dependent. Okay. And so what we've just done is we've created and we've added another feature in a very kind of efficient way. And obviously this is just scraping the surface, right? If you type / you can see like all the things that it can do. You can add directory, you can clear the conversation, you can configure it, you can do all of this. And you can do a lot of interesting things. Like if I do help, look at this. It gives me more commands permissions, manage MCP servers, edit Claude memory files. And so if you guys are interested, I'll make more videos about Claude Code as it relates to building no-code projects, because I've been using it for quite a while in the last couple of weeks to try different things, to try to build different apps. So let me know in the comments below if that is something that you guys want to be seeing. Now, as always, I'm going to be making this app available to our amazing Patreon members, our Patreon subscribers. And so if you are a member, thank you so much for supporting this channel and supporting my work. If you're not, click the first link in the description. Definitely check it out. You're going to love it. Lots and lots of benefits. Great community we have. Awesome people there. So definitely check it out. And let me know in the comments below if you guys want to see more Claude Code videos. I'll show you some of my favorite tips and tricks that I've been using to build much more complex apps than this.